this tutorial, you will learn how to create a complete power-up system in Unity using C# programming, where abilities have active time, cooldowns, and can only be reused once the cooldown is finished. We will use Enums, scriptable objects, hash set, and switch statement to build a clean and scalable system for beginners step by step. Huge thanks to Sikario, Olександра Bogdяж, Yuchen, Nisala Gunasekara, Hector 23, and a special thanks to Ahmad Surya Bimantara for supporting me on Patreon. Your support truly means a lot and helps me continue doing what I love every single day. And if you would like to access to the full source code and exclusive benefits, check out my Patreon link in the description. Now let's jump right into it. In order to add power-ups to our player game object, we will create three separate scripts in order to adding the power-ups. So go over to your project tab, assets, right click, create mono behavior script and name it to something like ability controller. And I have created that script inside my script folder, you can see. And this script right over here, it will be responsible for adding the power-ups to our player, like applying the power-ups and removing the power-ups. And we're gonna create a scriptable object script. And a scriptable object script, you can think of just like a data container which just gonna contain the data. So to do that, go over to assets once again, right click, create, then go over to scripting, scriptable object script, and name it to something like ability data. And I have created that script right over here, as you can see. And this script just going to contain about the power-ups, basically contain data of the power-ups like ability power, cooldown, active time of the ability, name of the ability, and the ability type. So it's going to contain that. And this will be scriptable object. So if we open up by double clicking on it, it's not gonna derive from mono behavior. Instead, you can see it's inheriting from scriptable object script. And you can think of just like a data container which gonna contains about the data. So we can just go ahead and we can create it, and we can see inside these square brackets we have the file name and the menu name. You can see scriptable objects / ability data. So basically we can create these assets inside this assets folder right over here. We can create that assets, and we can see the path where we have to go and we have to create the assets. So let's make couple of variables about our data, like name of the ability. So let's make that. So we're gonna make a public string, and we can call this one ability name. So let's call it ability name, and we also need to have the power of the ability. So let's make a public float, and we can call it power, but I'm gonna call it value instead. You can call it whatever you want, it's totally up to you. And by default I'm gonna set 10f or 10 unit. And also we need the active time of the of every power-ups. We can create as many power-ups we want. I'm gonna create two, one for speed and one for jump. You can have one for boosting your health, one for increasing the dash speed, and the list just goes on. It's basically up to you how many how many power-ups you just want to create. So this is scriptable object, that's why we created this script called scriptable object script. And now we need to have the active time and the cooldown, if cooldown time. So you're gonna make a public float active, let's call it active time, and by default I'm gonna set something like 5f or 5 unit. And public float, we also need the cooldown, so let's make a cooldown, and by default I'm gonna set something like 2 unit or 2f. And now we just created, as you can see, and we can just create as many power-ups we want. And we also need to identify which type of this ability is, because I'm gonna have the speed and the jump height. You can have as many you want. So for that we're gonna create a enum, and we can create that enum outside of the class. Enum you can think of just like a traffic light. If the light is red, it means we need to stop. If the lights basically the light turn out to green, that means we are ready to go. So you can think of just like that. So we have to mark this as public, then you have to type this enum and you have to name the enum. So I'm gonna call it ability type, and we need to make these curly brackets, so make sure you do that. And we can just name the ability type. So I'm gonna have two, so one for I'm gonna have for speed, so I'm gonna call it speed ability. So let's call it speed ability, and we need to type this comma, and we can create one for our jump ability. Jump ability. And you can create as many you want. It's totally up to you. You can create as I have explained it earlier for boosting your health, and the list just goes on, so you can just do that. So that's why we created this enum. What type of ability is that? And we also need to make sure we just go over to over here, and we just call out the our ability type, and we need to make sure we just make it public. So we're gonna make public, and and we have to type the enum, which is our ability type enum, and we can call it ability type. So let's call it ability type, just like that. And now we can just save our script, and we can navigate to Unity editor. So we can create the assets inside our assets folder by now. So we can right click, create, then we will go to scriptable object, then ability data, and we can see the name, which is a scriptable object, as you can see in the bottom. So right click, create, go over to bottom, and then you can see, and we can see the path over here inside our scriptable object script as well. Firstly scriptable objects, then slash ability data. So let's create. So we're gonna right click, create, let's go to scriptable objects, ability data, and we have to name this whatever we want to name it. I'm gonna call this one speed ability, so let's call it speed ability. And if we select that, go over to inspector, we can see the ability type is speed ability. So I'm gonna name it, I'm gonna leave it to speed ability, and I'm gonna name the ability name, this will be the speed, so I'm gonna call it speed ability, just like that. And we have the value, I'm gonna increase a little bit, so I'm gonna set it to 12, and we can see the active time and the cooldown, so I'm gonna leave it as it is. And now we can create as many one. So we created the speed one, now I'm gonna create the jump one. So I'm gonna right click, create, then scriptable objects, then ability data, and this one will be the jump ability, so I'm gonna call it jump ability, just like that. And I will go to inspector, ability type, I'm gonna choose jump ability because this will be the jump, and I'm gonna name it to something like jump, and I'm gonna increase this value something like by 15 unit, and I'm gonna leave the active time as it is. So this is, make sure you choose the enum type jump ability, because this one will be jump. And you can create one for your heart, basically one for your boosting your health, by right click, create, then go to scriptable object, ability data, and you can name it to something like boost heart ability, just like that. You can create as many you want. So that's why we created a scriptable object script, which is contains the data about the ability, like the power, like the value, active time, cooldown, and what type of ability this is. So I hope you get the idea that how you can do it. And now what we're gonna do, we're gonna open up our ability controller script in order to apply the ability in our player. And this will be the manager script you can think of. It's just gonna controls the ability, and we also need to remove the ability once the cooldown time is up. So let's open up our ability controller script by double clicking on it, and you can see I have grabbed the player script because we need the player speed, because we need to access the player speed. So top of that we can just add the value. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove this update function, we don't need, and make sure you just go to top of your class and include this two namespace call using system.collection.generic and system.collection using system.collection. And now we're gonna go to top of our class, and over here we're gonna create a list you can think of just like a backpack, where we just gonna add the ability data, basically the ability, like it can be speed ability or jump ability. We're gonna put it that firstly we need to create the backpack, which is the list. So we're gonna make a private list, and we need to make these arrows, and you're not gonna able to use if you don't include this namespace call using system.collection.generic. And now we have to type what type of list this is. This list is, or the backpack type will be ability data, which can be our speed ability or jump ability, and we can call it something like collected, and we have to set equal to a new list ability data, just like we have to do like this. Sorry, we just have to do like this. And now we're gonna create a hash set also you can think of just like a backpack or a backpack, but it's a more controllable. It's like a VIP entry. Let's suppose the speed ability already inside this player, and let's suppose if I collect this green gem once again, then I want to apply the ability in my player, and the ability is already running, and then I collect the green gem once again. So I don't want to apply that speed ability once again, because the speed ability is already running. So that's why we're gonna create a hash set which will keep track of if there is a ability already, there is a ability and the ability type is same. We assume it as speed. It means we need to stop applying the ability once again, because that ability is already running, and we're gonna add that ability once the cooldown time is over. So that's why we're gonna create the hash set which just gonna control the ability. Basically, if there is a already ability and the ability is we assume it is speed, then we don't want to apply that ability once again. So that is the reason we're gonna create the hash set, and it's gonna do that for us. So we're gonna make a private, and we have to type this hash set, and now we need to make these arrows, and inside these arrows we need to put the ability type. So we're gonna put our ability type ability type ability type, which can be our jump or speed ability or jump ability, like that. And we can call it cooldown abilities. You can call it whatever you want, cooldown abilities, and let's set equal to a new has set ability, just like that. Now we just created, you can see we have the collected basically the backpack. And now what we have to do, we need to trigger the ability. So we're gonna make a function in order to trigger the ability, or you can think of just like we're gonna apply the ability. If I collect this green gem, then I just want to add the speed ability, and if I collect the heart, then I'm gonna add the jump ability to my player. You can check with any game object you want. It's basically totally up to you. It's totally up to you. So now let's go over to our script, and over here we're gonna make that function. So, and we're gonna make this function public void, and we have to name the function. So I'm gonna call it trigger ability, and let's make first bracket and some curly brackets, and inside this bracket right over here, it's gonna take the ability data, because we need to check which type of ability that is. So that's why we're gonna put an argument which will be ability data, and we can call it ability data. So let's call it ability data, just like that. And now once we're gonna call out this function, basically means we need to apply the ability, and we need to fill the backpack. Basically we need to add the ability inside this collected list. So let's go to collect list, and then we're gonna use this add function, and it's gonna take the item, basically the ability data, which can be jump or speed. So I'm gonna pass my ability data over here. And now we also need to activate our ability. And in order to activate our ability, we're gonna use the enumerator function, and that function basically is just gonna do a specific things after a specific amount of time, because we also need to wait for the active time. Once the active time is over of our player, basically the ability active time is over, that means we need to go over to cooldown. So after some certain period of time we need to go over to cooldown, and once the cooldown time is up or over, then that means we can collect this green gem or the heart once again. So that's why we're gonna use a enumerator instead of using a general function. So we're gonna use this enumerator, and before you use, make sure you go to top of your class and include this namespace called using system.collection. And enumerator over here, we have to name the function, and we can call this function activate ability, and we need to make sure we call inside this function that function once we're gonna trigger the ability, or basically we collected that green gem or the heart, you can simply think of. So we need to call it over here, but we're gonna call it later. For now we can simply put a message. So by double forward slash we're gonna say something like activate, let's call it activate ability, just like that. And now I'm gonna rename this function, I'm gonna name this function activate ability, just like that. And we will make first bracket and some curly brackets, and this function just gonna allow us in order to do some certain things after some period of time. And this over here, it's gonna take an argument that will be ability data, because we need to check which type of ability that is. So we're gonna pass our ability data, and we can call it ability data. And we need to make sure we replace this ability data argument later on with our ability data, real ability data. Basically, if I go over to my Unity editor, I choose this jump ability, you can see this jump ability has the value, the name, the active time, and the cooldown we have. So that's why we need to get those information. That is the reason we just pass inside these brackets the ability data, because we need those things. We need the active time of the ability, cooldown time of the ability, and the list just goes on. Before we apply the ability, we want to check if the ability is already there. Basically, let's suppose the speed ability is already running on this player game object. It means we should not apply the speed ability once again to our player. So that's why we created this hash set, you can see in the top. So before we apply the ability, we just want to check. So let's use the if condition. So let's make first bracket and some curly brackets, and we're gonna check. So firstly we will type this cooldowns, basically the hash set cooldown abilities. And then we're gonna use this this constraint function. So let's use dot constraint function, and it's gonna take the ability type, which ability is running. So in our case we will go to ability data, then we're gonna access the ability type enum. Ability type enum, it can be something like speed ability, it can be jump ability. Let's suppose there is already running, and we're checking over here that if cooldown abilities dot contains ability data dot ability type, means let's suppose this is the speed one, it is running. So in this situation, we're gonna make the function apply ability somewhere around here. So before we apply the ability, we just taking right over here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna type this yield break. So we need to type this yield break, and after yield break basically means whatever you're gonna do, it's not gonna be execute at all. It means that we're not gonna able to apply the speed ability to our player game object, because it's already running, and we're checking over here if that ability is already running. Let's suppose the ability is not running at all, it means we are ready to collect the green gem, this green gem, and we can just increase the speed ability, we're gonna apply the speed ability. So let's suppose the ability is not running, which is the speed, as we assume the speed ability. So in this situation we're gonna apply. For now I'm gonna comment it. So I'm gonna say something like apply ability, just like that, just like this. You can ignore this line of code right over here, basically these comments. So I'm gonna remove that. So we need to apply the ability, and we have to make the function in order to apply the ability, like like adding a speed to our player, to make it our player movement a little bit fast, just like that. So after that, what we have to do, we need to make sure that we put it inside our this has set. We need to put it there, the ability type. So to put inside our has set, basically this cooldown abilities, we need to use this cooldown abilities dot add function, and it's gonna take the ability type. So we will go to ability data, and now we're gonna access the ability type enum. So let's access that, which can be jump ability or speed ability. So we just add it. And now what we're gonna do, we're gonna wait for the active time of that ability. So to do that, we need to use this yell return new wait for second, new wait for second. Just write right after me, just like this, and you have to put the time. So over here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put the active time of that ability. To do that, we will go to ability data. So let's go to ability data, and now we just are gonna access the active time. So what we're doing, simply we're just going over to this ability data scriptable object script, or you can simply think of this speed or the jump ability, and we accessing the active time, and we can see the active time by default we have set 5, we can notice. So this ability sorry, if we go to ability controller script, so this active time right over here, it's gonna be 5 seconds, as we set default value. So after this amount of time, what we need to do, we need to remove that ability. We need to remove that ability because the active time of that ability is over. So for now, I'm gonna make it comment. So we're gonna make a remove ability function, and we're gonna do it later. So for now, I'm gonna make a comment, something like says remove ability, just like that. And after that, we need to empty the backpack, basically the we need to empty this collected list, to remove it from there, basically the ability data. We need to use this collected. So we basically going over to collected list, basically the backpack you can think of, and we're gonna remove. To remove, we're gonna use this remove function, and it's gonna take the ability data. So we're gonna pass our ability data. After removing the ability from our collected list, what we're gonna do, we're gonna wait for cooldown of that ability. So we can simply copy this line of code, which is yield return new wait for second, and after removing that, we're gonna just gonna do the same thing. But for now, instead of active time, what we're gonna do, we're gonna put our cooldown time. So we're gonna put our cooldown. So we're gonna wait for this amount of time, which is cooldown, and after this amount of time, it means that we are ready to collect the speed ability once again. It means we are ready to collect this green gem, and we are ready to apply the speed ability once again to our player, as we assume the speed ability, but it can be jump ability as well. And you're gonna have bunch of ability. If you want to create, then you can just expand it, it's totally up to you. So after what we have to do, we need to make sure we remove it from this has set list, which is cooldown abilities. We have to remove it from there because we added, we can see, before we applying the ability, we just basically over here we can see, before we activate that ability, we just added inside this has-set, and now we need to remove it from that has-set, or you can think of just like a backpack, but that backpack is like a VIP entry. It's just gonna check. So now after cooldown, we are ready to remove it from our headset. To remove that, we have to type the headset name, which is cooldown abilities, and dot we have to use this remove function. and now it's going to take the ability which we want to remove. So we will go to ability data, and now we're going to access the ability type, which is the enum, which can be speed or jump ability. And now we're going to close that up with semicolon, and we basically done the thing. And now what we have to do after cooling down, we are ready to now it's gonna be empty. So over here this line of code also gonna be false. So this line of code gonna be false. It means we're gonna able to apply the ability once again to our player game object. And now what we have to do, we need to make this apply ability function and remove ability function in order to remove that ability. Now let's make those function apply ability. So let's make the function somewhere around here. So we're gonna make void, and let's call it apply ability. Let's call it apply ability, and let's make first bracket and some curly brackets. And this function void apply ability, it's gonna take the ability data because we need to check which type of ability that is. So we need the ability data, so we're going to put our ability data, and let's call it ability data. And make sure we have to remove it once we gonna call out the ability data. So we need to replace this one with our jump ability or the speed ability, depending upon which one we collected. So now what we're gonna do, and now we have to basically apply the ability, means we need to speed up the value. We need to make the speed of this player a little bit fast and the jump. But before we apply that, we need to make sure which type of ability we collected. And for that we're gonna use a switch statement. You can think of just like a if condition, but using a switch statement is much better when you applying some effect to your players. So you can use a switch statement instead of if condition, but in other condition you can use the if condition and it's fine. But for ability thing, you can use the switch statement instead of the if statement. So what we need to do, we need to type this switch, and we have to make this first bracket and some curly brackets. And inside this first bracket, it's gonna take the condition type. So we have to provide the condition type, which will be ability type. So we will go to ability data, and now we're gonna access the enum, which is the ability type, because we need to check which type of ability we collected. And now what we have to do, we need to type this case 1, like we're gonna check if the ability type is speed. So we're gonna type ability type, basically the enum, and now we're gonna access speed ability, and we have to make this symbol. So make sure you just typing as I did over here. If that is the case, means that we just collected the speed ability. It means we need to speed up the value instead of the jump height. So we need a reference to our player script, which you can see I have the speed parameter and the jump height parameter. And you can see I already grabbed the player script reference in the start of the game. If you haven't, then make sure you just do that, you grab the player script, because we need to access the player speed. So we will go to player speed, and now we're gonna access the speed of it speed, and we're gonna add basically this is the current speed of our player. So top of this speed, I'm gonna add the value of that ability, speed ability. So top of that plus equal we have to in order to add, and we will add the power, or basically the value of that ability. So in our case this will be the speed ability. So if I go back to my Unity editor, choose my speed ability, we can see the value is 12. So we basically need to add the top of that value. So the value is 12. So I'm gonna go over to my ability data, and now I'm gonna access the value of it. So which is the value which we have set which we have set in the inspector 12, as you saw. And after that we need to type this break and then close that up with semicolon. If you don't type this break, then this just gonna go over to next line, and it's gonna check and it's gonna give us some error. So we need to make sure we apply it correctly, and after that we just type break. It means we don't want to run anything after, right after that. So what we're doing, simply we just going over to this player script, and we accessing the speed parameter. So if I scroll up of my player script, you can see the speed parameter, which is 7, and in the inspector you saw something like 4 unit. So if I choose my player, we can see the speed is 4. So 4 plus this value is 12. So 4 plus 12 will be 16. It means the player speed will be 15. Sorry, 16. It will be 16. So the player speed will be 16. Let's say the ability type is jump ability. So in this situation, instead of increasing the speed parameter, we need to increase the jump height parameter. So case 2, so we need to type this case, and we're gonna check if, let's suppose, the ability type dot jump ability. So if that is the jump ability, in this situation, instead of adding the player speed, we need to add the jump height. So we will go to player script, and now we're gonna access the jump height. Top of that, we're just gonna add the value. To add the value, let's go to ability data, scriptable object script, and now we're gonna access the value, and then close that up with semicolon, and also make sure you just type this break, and that's all we have to do. So before we apply the ability, we basically checking and we using this switch statement in order to check, and it's gonna take the condition type, which is ability type, and we're checking that if the ability is speed, then in this situation we just increasing the speed parameter, so we can just move a little bit faster left and right. And if the ability type is jump ability, so in this situation we just adding the jump height. Top of our jump height, we adding the value. So if I choose my jump height jump ability asset, go over to inspector, we can see the value is 15. And if I choose my player script, we can see its jump height is 8. So 8 plus 15 will be something around 23, I guess. So the player will jump in the y-axis with 23 unit. Basically jump height, which is 8, and top of that we just added the value, which is 15. So 8 plus 15. And what we have to do now, we need to call this apply ability function. And when we need to call it, once we activate the ability, so we need to call it over here, because over here we can see we just applying the ability. So instead of commenting, we should call the function. So let's call the apply ability function, apply ability, and make first bracket, and we're gonna close that up with semicolon. And now it's gonna take the ability data as we pass over here as an argument, we can see. So we're gonna pass this ability data that we passed over here. So we're gonna pass our ability data here, and we have to make sure we replace this ability data later on with this jump ability asset or this speed ability asset. So we need to make sure we replace with that. And after active time, what we have to do, we need to remove that ability. And to remove that ability, we're gonna make a function to remove that, and we're gonna call it after this amount of time. Basically once the active time is over of that ability, that means we need to remove the ability from our player. To do that, we're gonna make a function for removing the ability. So let's make a function void remove, let's call it remove ability. As always, it's gonna take the ability data, so we're gonna pass our ability data. Let's call it ability data because we need to check, and we're gonna use the same statement, basically switch. So we can simply copy this line of code by Control C, and we can put it over here by Control V. And now instead of adding, what we're doing, we just adding. So instead of adding, we need to subtract, because we just added the ability, and over here we have to remove it. It means we need to remove whatever value we added. So instead of typing plus equal ability dot value, we need to type minus equal ability data dot value, because we need to subtract the amount that we added, and we have to do the same thing for our jump height. So we're gonna type this minus. So the first thing we're checking that if the ability type is speed ability, then if it's running, then in this situation we just subtracting. As you can see, which value we added, we just subtracting the value, and the value was something like 12. So if I choose my speed ability, we can see the value is 12, and the player move speed, or the speed, we can see is 4. So so we just subtracting that, so it will be something like 12. So this one is will be 12. So 12 minus 12 minus value, which is sorry, this will be I guess, let me see, this will be 4. So this one over here will be after adding that value. So this one is 4, so 4 plus 12 is 16. So this one over here is 16, and ability dot value is 12. So 16 minus 12 will be 4. So it's gonna go back to normal speed, and we're doing the same thing for our jump ability, as you can see. And now we need to call this remove ability. When we need to call it, once the active time of that ability is over. So we need to call it over here. So after this waiting this amount of time, ability data dot active time. So after waiting this amount of time, we are ready to remove that ability. So let's call out the remove ability function over here, because because the active time is now over, and after that we can do whatever we want to do. So we're gonna call the remove ability over here, because the active time of that ability is over. And now it's gonna take, as always, the ability data. So let's pass our ability data. So gonna pass our ability data, and make sure you put as an argument ability data once you calling out this activate ability. And we just done all of the things that we need to do. And what we have to do by now, we need to call this activate ability. When we need to call this activate ability function, once we trigger the ability, so we need to call it over here. Let's suppose we collected this green gem, then we're gonna trigger this function, which is the trigger ability. And this function firstly adding adding the ability data inside our list, and we are ready to activate the ability because we collected this green gem or this heart. If we collect the heart, so in this situation I just want to add the jump ability, but if I collect a green gem instead of that heart, then I want to add the speed ability. So we need to call the activate ability function over here, and we cannot call it normally because this is a enumerator function. Simply we just type the function name and we can call out, but inside enumerator function, basically once we use this function we cannot call it normally. So what we need to do, we need to type start coroutine. It's kinda bit weird, but we have to use it. So first thing, we need to type this start coroutine, and we need to make this bracket, and inside this bracket we have to call the function, and the function is activate ability. So let's call it there. So activate ability, and then make this first bracket. And this activate ability, as always, we can see it's gonna take the ability data, and we pass inside this bracket, inside this trigger ability function, which is the ability data. So we're gonna pass our ability data over here. So let's pass ability data, and make sure you close that up with semicolon. So we need to call this trigger ability function. When we need to call it, once we're gonna trigger with this green gem, and once we're gonna trigger with this heart. So we need to call it there. And now we're gonna save our script by Control S, and let's get back to Unity editor. We will create a C# script, something like trigger ability. So go over to your project tab, assets, then right click create, go to scripting, mono behavior script, and name it to something like trigger ability. And I have that script over here, and this script right over here, it will be responsible for triggering the ability. Basically, if we go to ability controller script, we need to call this function, and we need to call it when we need to call it once we're gonna trigger with this green gem or this heart. So we're gonna attach the script to this green gem as well as this heart, and we're gonna take the ability data. If we collect the heart, then we just want to add the jump ability, and if we collect the green gem, then we just want to have the speed ability. So we're gonna create a script, and we already did that. So we're gonna attach this script to this green gem as well as to our heart, and we're gonna check with the trigger. So let's do that. So I'm gonna open up my trigger ability, but before I open up, I'm gonna select my green gem, and make sure you just add a circle collider 2D or any collider 2D, and check this is trigger as check. And now I'm gonna select my script. Let's add it, let's drag it over to this add component section, basically attach to your game object. And I'm gonna do the same thing for this heart as well. So I'm gonna attach my trigger ability script, And now let's double click on this in order to open that up, and this script will be responsible for adding the ability once we're gonna trigger with our player. So we can just go ahead, we can remove the start and the update function. And now we're going to use this on trigger enter 2D function, and we do know that this function get called when we trigger with something. Let's suppose this heart or this green gem just trigger with this player, then this function over here just gonna get called, and we can extract information what we trigger it with by taking this collision parameter. So we want to check if we trigger with this player, that means we can call the trigger ability function, and it's gonna apply the ability to our player. We already know that. So to do that, so before we trigger, we just want to check. So let's use the if condition for it, and we're gonna use that if collision dot game object dot tag, if it's equals to our player, it means that we just colliding with player. And before you just check that the tag, make sure you select your player. So select your player, click on this untag, then click on add tag, create a new tag, and assign your player as a player tag. And you can see that I have already assigned it my player as a player tag. And over here we checking if collision.gameObject.tag. Collision.gameObject basically means the game object, this green gem or this heart gem, this heart just collided or triggered it with. So this green gem definitely gonna trigger with this player. So collision.gameObject, that basically there means this player, and then we accessing the tag and we checking player if it's player, and we do know we definitely gonna trigger with player. It means we are ready to apply the ability. And to apply the ability, we can simply go over to this ability controller script and we can call the function, and we do know what this function just gonna do. So let's do that. So let's go over to our trigger ability function to call that. So we will go to collision.gameObject means the player, and now we're gonna use this .get component, and the component or the script we're looking for is ability controller. So we will go to ability controller and then make this first bracket, and now we can call the function which is trigger ability. So we're gonna type dot and then we're gonna call it trigger ability, and it's gonna take the ability data. So now what we're gonna do, we need a reference to this ability data. So if I go over to my project tab, assets, and if I navigate to my script folder, you can see I have created the asset which is the jump ability asset and the speed ability asset. So we need a reference to this. So let's grab the reference. So let's go to top of our class and let's make a ability data field. So we're gonna make a public ability data and we can call it ability data. So let's call it ability data, and make sure you just put inside these brackets ability data. And once you go back to your Unity editor, make sure you just drag the reference. So I'm going to press down Ctrl S to save my script, and let's navigate to Unity editor. Choose my green gem. So let's choose that one. So I'm going to choose this one, and we can see ability data, and it says none ability data means empty. So we can take our assets which is the jump ability or speed ability. So this is the green gem. So if we trigger with the green gem, if our player trigger with this green gem or the player trigger with this green gem, so in this situation I just want to speed up the speed ability. So that's why I'm gonna take the speed ability instead of the jump ability data asset. So I'm gonna take my there and I'm gonna attach it. And if I choose my this heart, we can see none ability. So if we collect this heart, so in this situation I just want to increase the jump height. In it means that we want to add the, or we just want to apply the jump ability. So that's why I'm gonna take the jump ability asset, jump ability data asset instead of the ability speed ability data asset. So I'm gonna drag it there because we collected this heart, and you can just choose a different ability data for your different game object. Basically what type of you just want to do. And if you turn it your game object into prefab, then make sure you go to inspector overrides and then apply all. So it will do all of the same, basically the changes to all of the same things, basically the prefab of that game object. and if I choose my this green gem, and I will go to overrides and then apply all, so the changes will be saved just like that. And now we are ready to collect it, and we can see that. So let's take a quick look. So I'm going to select my player in the hierarchy, and if I choose my player script, you can see the speed is 4, the jump height is 8 unit, and let's try to collect them. So I'm gonna play my game quickly. You can see we moving slowly. If I try to jump, we jumping way less, and we moving slowly. But if I try to collect this green gem, and one thing we forgot to do, that if we collect that, we can notice we moving way faster. We moving way faster, and that's basically doing. So we also need to make sure we destroy the game object. So we're moving way faster, and after once the active time is over, we can notice it's moving way slowly. It's not moving at all fastly. But once we're gonna collect, and if we try to jump in the y-axis, I really apologize if the system is lagging too much, because I'm just using a low system. And if I try to jump, you can notice I am jumping way slowly. But if I collect the heart right away, I'm gonna jump way fast. So let's collect them, and if I try to jump, you can notice we jumping a lot. And after once the active time and the cooldown is over, basically the active time is over, we can see we cannot jump with that much, and we can see our jump height and the speed parameter gets back to its normal value. So once we collected them, if I collect the try to collect the heart once again, we can see the jump height becomes 23 underneath our player's script, and after like active time, which is 5 unit by default we have chosen, it gets back to 8 unit. And that is the thing, and we can see that. And I hope you get the idea that how you can make this jump and the speed ability, and you can make as many ability you want. And also you have to make sure you just go to your trigger ability script, and after collecting calling the trigger ability, basically applying the ability, make sure you just destroy this game object. So we have to use this destroy this dot game object, and this script is attached to our this green gem as well as this heart. So this dot game object basically means this green gem and this heart referencing itself, because we collected them, as you can see. So I hope you get the idea that how you can do this, and I will see you in the next upcoming tutorial.